Good morning in the beautiful Galilee morning. I have already shoveled this morning a square meter of soil around the property. Uh, got a lot of work done. You have to get up early and start working before the sun gets up high because this time of year it's really hot. We're expecting 107 degrees Fahrenheit, which I don't know what that is in Celsius, but it's hot enough. So I've had to get up and start to work early, and it's about, I think about 8:30, maybe 9 o'clock, and I've already been working for 4 hours. So I'm about done, but I wanted to let you know that I'm going to start a series of shorts. I didn't get it up yesterday, so you're going to get 2 today, and then starting tomorrow, they're going to be shorts. And what I've done is I have taken some wheat grains in a sack from the grocery store, and to that I have added some wild Emmer wheat to the flour I made from the wheat grains that I bought in the grocery store in a commercial bag. And I've added the Emmer grains in a doughy consistency before they're completely hard to see if I could use the yeast that grows on the outside of the wild grains, because the commercial grains have been processed, they've been washed, they've been this, they've been that. And I wanted to see if I could use the yeast flora on the outside of the wild grains to cause the wheat flour that I've made from the commercial grains to grab the yeast and begin a leavening process so that we can have, by the leaven on the wild wheat, a leavened loaf of wheat before Shavuot. And you're going to see at the end of the second little video that we're in the second day and it's already grabbing fermentation. So it's really kind of exciting. I did not expect it to happen this quickly, but it has. So what happens next is you're going to see the first day of the process, which was yesterday, and then this morning, which has not even been quite 24 hours, you're going to see already the yeast is growing. And I'm going to continue to feed and grow that quantity of yeast as we progress towards Shavuot. And hopefully we'll have enough to make a nice huge loaf of leavened wheat bread in time for Shavuot. We're not trying to offer a bread of first fruits. We're not trying to fulfill the law in any manner. I've been teaching you that the yeast is naturally occurring on the outside of the grains, and this is just proof of that process and proof of that you can take a completely new harvest of wheat, and that wheat has the leaven on it that we need for the process of creating leavened wheat loaves, the bread of first fruits that was commanded in Leviticus 23. So this is just a little bit of an experiment that I thought you might enjoy to see, since I've been telling you about the yeast on the outside of the barley, that we parch the barley. It's a positive command that it must be done, because in the meat offerings, which are the ground barley grain offerings, there was to be no yeast. However, we cannot parch the wheat grains because it destroys the gluten that you need to make the bread of first fruits, and you also need that yeast flora. Now, this is just an experiment so you can see with your own eyes that this is possible, and it's not that difficult, and it's not been that difficult. However, it has been very warm. It's going to be 107 this week. All these things added together has caused this process to happen pretty quickly, and surprisingly so. So watch and see what comes next. Good morning. Why are you looking at this mess on my table? Well, because what I'm doing is I'm taking the Emmer, which really is not quite ready. If I show you, I can still really easily divide it with my fingernail. So it's not fully mature, and we can't, let's just talk about a couple things. We can't roast this because it's going to destroy the gluten that you need to create the bread of first fruits, and it's going to destroy the yeast. And the yeast is why I'm taking some early wheat. I'm going to use about 2 heads of these immature grains, and I'm going to add it to some commercial wheat grains that I've passed through my grinder, and see if we can use these grains of wild wheat to begin a leavening process towards understanding how early do we really need wheat to be ready in the days in front of Shavuot. Because it says in the scripture in Leviticus 23 that the leavened wheat shall be as the first fruits of the threshing floor, the leavened wheat loaves. So you can still see that's got a little green in it, and that's why we're not quite there. Probably, depending on our weather, by the weekend or even the first of next week, the wheat will have a general appearance of being ready to harvest. But I'm taking this now to see what we can do with it. How many days? How early am I looking for the wheat to be ready? So I'm going to take you on that journey with me. So this is the debris from those 2 heads you saw. And I've got about, probably 20 grains here. Every one of those are still divisible. I'm counting on actually 2 things: that the sugars inside of these are a little bit higher, and since they're kind of in that still maturing phase, and that the yeast on the outside of that will, just like you do with the grapes, that the sugar from the grapes feeds the yeast on the outside of the grapes. And so I'm going to try to mimic that process of using the sugars that remain inside of here while it's still tender to get the starter going for the flour I have in the kitchen. So I'm probably going to make a mess. This is the flour. Let me just show you what I've used here. Grab one that's not open. Just wheat grains for cooking. And I've run them through my grinder, and I'm going to take 1/4 cup, make a big mess, I'm sure. I'll set it up here, be easier to clean up. Dump that in there. I'm going to add 1/4 cup of water. Yeah, it's a little soupier than normal. I'm going to add a little warm water. Let me get it warm. The kitchen's a mess. So it's a place of work, not a place, it's not good housekeeping. I don't have a good housekeeping life. I have a quasi-farm between the parrots and the, I forgot which way's hot, between the parrots and the, here it comes, and the trees and all that stuff. So I'm going to take 1/4 cup, pour it over in there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm literally going to just kind of smash these. I'll bring you back when I'm finished. I'm just kind of going to smash these like I do when I start a sourdough starter with grapes, and put that down in the jar with the other wheat. I'll bring you back. Okay guys, they weren't really smashable, so what I did is I just kind of diced them up with the blade of the knife, and now I'm going to add them to this jar. And we'll see. These will be, I think they call them shorts, where we'll come back and we'll check on the progression of this to see if we can get a sourdough, a leavening process using the Emmer. And if all goes well, hopefully we're going to have a loaf of leavened wheat bread by the time of Shavuot. And I'm probably going to add a little bit more water to that. I remember with whole wheat breads that I've made in the past is they typically take more liquid than the white refined flour because there's more fiber and things that absorb the water. So I think I'm going to come back in here and add about 2 more tablespoons of water but it'll just be just so I can swirl it. That's not swirling. I'll just be enough so I can swirl it. I'm going to put a cloth on this with a rubber band to keep other yeasts out, and I'll bring you back tomorrow and we'll see what has happened. So I did add some more liquid. It may need just a smidge more water. I like when I start it to have just a smidge of liquidity in it. I don't mind the alcohol that's produced on top of it. You know, sometimes it'll produce an alcohol. I'm just going to cover it with a paper towel and a rubber band, and we'll see what happens. Again, I'll bring you back tomorrow and we'll check on this. That is where it's going to sit up on my shelf until we come back tomorrow. Good morning. This is not quite 24 hours. I'm going to see if I can bring it up close. Don't know if you can see those air bubbles in there. Take the top off. I've already had it off. That's why it's loose. There you go. That is just 24 hours. Now, granted, that's not enough to make bread. So the goal is still going to be to feed this and create enough yeast, enough sourdough to make a loaf of bread before Shavuot. Let's see how we go. So I'm going to go risky, because you're not really supposed to double your batter, but I'm going to just be wild. I'm going to take another 1/4 cup of flour and 1/4 cup of water. And remember, there is no sugar in here that I'm feeding any of the yeast flora that came with the grains. This is just that tender Emmer wheat, and just that tender Emmer wheat, and the commercial. Oh, look at that's pretty nice bubbles down in there. It's really holding up nicely. And the commercial wheat grains I've ground. So I'm actually, but our temperatures are warm. We're going to be 107 at some point this week. I just saw one of those wheat grains. You see the wheat grains still down in there? The tender wheat grains. But I'm actually kind of surprised how quickly that happened. Okay, I'll check back in with you in a bit on this little project that I'm taking you through.